The galaxy was in chaos. For centuries, the X-All Dominion had been one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Their ships, technology, and vast fleets had made them nearly invincible. But now, the once proud Solar were falling apart. A series of brutal wars, internal rebellions, and the rise of new deadly enemies had fractured the Dominion into several factions. Trust had crumbled, and the mighty empire was now a shell of its former self. The war had drained the X-All's strength. Their fleet, once a symbol of power, had been broken in battle after battle. The X-All were struggling to survive, and many of their worlds were on the brink of collapse. The galaxy's great powers were divided and weak, with no hope of recovery. In the midst of this hopelessness, an unexpected message reached the X-All leaders. It was a transmission from humanity. The message was simple, but it caught the attention of everyone who heard it. The humans, a species from a violent and unpredictable world, what the X-All called Deathworlders, offered help. At first, the X-All dismissed the message as a joke or an attempt to trick them. How could such a young species, barely known beyond their own planet, offer anything that could change the course of the galaxy's fate? But the message was persistent. Humanity was offering not just aid, but a fleet of ships built for war, a fleet that could take on any enemy, no matter how dangerous. The Deathworlders, it seemed, were prepared to offer their might to save the galaxy. The X-All, desperate and broken, knew they had no other choice but to listen. The X-All's council convened in a high, secured chamber on the capital world of Zenthis. There, they debated whether to accept humanity's offer. Many were skeptical. They had seen other species fail before, their promises empty. But there was something different about this message. The humans spoke not of alliances or peace talks, but of a military solution, a way to destroy the enemies threatening the galaxy. The idea of humans coming to their aid was strange, even insulting to some of the X-All leaders. After all, the Deathworlders were known for their brutality, their willingness to fight with no regard for the cost. But there was no time to argue. The X-All Dominion was falling apart, and their enemies were closing in. In the end, the council made a decision. They would accept the humans' offer. They would send a delegation to meet with them and learn what the Deathworlders had to offer. It was a risky move, but it was their only hope. As the decision was made, the X-All leaders began to prepare for the arrival of the human fleet, unaware that this decision would change the course of history forever. Across the galaxy, the faintest whispers of the Deathworlders' arrival began to spread. The galaxy's factions, already on edge, began to wonder. Could these humans really save them from the chaos, or would they be the final nail in the coffin of a shattered galaxy? Only time would tell. The X-All were not the only ones aware of humanity's message. The entire galaxy buzzed with curiosity and fear. Who were these humans, these so-called Deathworlders? What could they possibly offer that could change the course of the war? Some saw it as a desperate gamble, while others feared what kind of destruction the humans might bring. As the days passed, the X-All sent their top leaders to meet with the human delegation. The humans, led by Admiral Elena Ryder, had already made their way to the X-All homeworld. Their ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, massive, rough, and clearly designed for combat. The X-All had always relied on precision and elegance in their designs, but humanity's fleet was raw power. It looked as though it had been built to survive in the harshest environments, and it was impossible to ignore the strength it promised. Admiral Ryder stood at the head of the human fleet, her face calm but hard. She was a woman who had earned a reputation for her ruthless efficiency and unyielding determination. Her military strategies were feared across the earth, and now, those very strategies would be tested on a much larger scale. She had been briefed on the X-All's situation and understood the gravity of the task ahead. The Deathworlders were not a species known for alliances. In fact, humanity had always been at war with the galaxy's many species, fighting for survival, fighting for dominance. Yet, here they were, offering their might to the X-All. The first meeting between the XR leaders and Admiral Ryder was tense. The XR delegation was led by Chancellor Viros, a battle-worn elder who had seen the rise and fall of countless powers in his lifetime. He eyed the human fleet with suspicion, unable to shake the feeling that this was too good to be true. How could these humans, with their primitive technology and savage reputation, offer a solution to their many problems? "We've faced the worst the galaxy has to offer," Chancellor Viros said slowly, his voice filled with doubt. "What can you, Deathworlders, bring that we cannot do ourselves?" Admiral Ryder remained still, her eyes steady as she answered. "We don't promise peace. We don't promise to save you. But what we do offer is power. The kind of power that can win wars. We fight with no rules, no hesitation. If you want to stop the chaos, we'll give you the strength to do it. But we do it our way." The room fell silent. The XR leaders exchanged uncertain glances. They had been accustomed to finesse, to strategic brilliance, but the humans spoke of something different: brutal, direct force. The idea was strange, but it held weight. If anyone could understand the value of survival above all else, it was the XR. And right now, survival was all that mattered. "We will give you control over our fleet," Chancellor Viros said at last, his voice steady despite his doubts. "But you must promise us victory. We cannot afford to lose." Admiral Ryder nodded. "Victory is the only thing we know. We'll fight to win, no matter the cost." With that, the alliance was formed. The Deathworlders would join the XR in their battle against the galaxy's rising threats. For the first time in years, the XR felt a flicker of hope, no longer alone in their struggle. But deep down, they couldn't help but wonder, could the humans truly deliver on their promises, or would this alliance only bring more destruction? Only time would reveal the answer. The news of the human fleet's arrival spread quickly across the galaxy, stirring up both hope and fear. Some saw the alliance between the XR and the Deathworlders as a chance for survival, while others whispered that it was a mistake that would only lead to more chaos. Yet the most skeptical among the XR were the warriors, battle-hardened veterans who had fought for decades. They had seen too many failed alliances, too many promises broken. To them, trusting these humans seemed like a fool's gamble. Despite their doubts, the XR knew they had no choice. Their enemies were closing in, and their fleet was already on the verge of collapse. The only hope lay in the human forces, an unknown variable that might just turn the tide. Admiral Elena Ryder, though new to the galaxy's politics, was a seasoned leader. She understood the weight of her position. The Deathworlders were not here to make friends. They were here to fight, to win, and to secure humanity's place in the galaxy. Ryder had earned her reputation for being a no-nonsense strategist, and now she was about to prove that her methods could work on a much larger scale. To gain the trust of the XR, Ryder knew she needed more than just a show of power. She needed to prove that humanity's way of warfare, brutal and unpredictable, was exactly what the XR needed. To do this, she turned to the most unlikely of allies within the XR fleet, Captain Lorraine. Captain Lorraine was young for an XR officer, still in his 30s by their species standards. He had seen the downfall of his people and watched as their great empire crumbled. However, Lorraine was different from many of his peers. He had an open mind, a willingness to look beyond tradition and listen to new ideas. While the rest of the XR military commanders scoffed at the thought of humanity's methods, Lorraine was intrigued. He had spent years studying human combat tactics, brutal, relentless, and unforgiving. Unlike the XR, who fought with precision and calculated strikes, the humans fought with instinct, adapting quickly to their surroundings. Lorraine believed that humanity's unorthodox methods could be the key to turning the war around. He approached Admiral Ryder with a proposal. "Human tactics are different," Lorraine said cautiously, "but I see the strength in them. The XR need to learn how to fight with unpredictability, to act without hesitation. If we combine our strengths, your ruthlessness with our precision, we may just have a chance." Ryder studied the young officer for a moment. She could see the determination in his eyes, the spark of someone willing to break free from tradition and try something new. "We don't have time for hesitation," she replied. "If you're willing to take the risk, I'm with you." Together, they began to form a plan, a blend of human and Exol strategies that would take the galaxy's enemies by surprise. It was a gamble, but it was the only choice they had. They knew that if they could prove the value of this new approach, they could unite the Exol and the Deathworlders in a way that no one else had ever done before. The first test would come soon enough. The Dren, a violent and aggressive species, were on the move. They had already taken several Exol colonies and were now preparing to invade the key world of Anarath. Ryder and Loren would lead a joint force to stop them. If they succeeded, it would prove that their alliance, however unlikely, could turn the tide of the war. As the Deathworlder fleet prepared for battle, Ryder looked out at the assembled forces. The Exol ships were sleek and advanced, their weapons powerful and precise. But the human ships were something else entirely, designed for raw, brutal power. The combination of the two was a sight to behold, a force that would either make or break their hopes for survival. The battle for Anarath was about to begin, and with it, the first test of humanity's promise. The planet Anarath was a symbol of the Exol's past glory. Once a thriving hub of culture and military might, it now stood as a war-torn world, its cities in ruins and its fields scared by battle. The Dren, a fierce and barbaric species, had invaded it months ago, destroying everything in their path. They were not only brutal warriors but also skilled conquerors, able to adapt quickly to new battle environments. Anarath was crucial to the Exol. If they lost it, they would lose all hope of rallying their remaining forces. Admiral Alina Ryder stood on the command bridge of her flagship, the Raging Phoenix, staring at the war map of Anarath. It was a grim sight. The Dren had set up fortified positions all across the planet, with their main base nestled in a deep valley surrounded by towering mountains. The Exol fleet, under Ryder's command, was the last hope of reclaiming Anarath. "We need to act fast," Ryder said, her voice cold but determined. "The Dren know we're coming. They'll be prepared, but we can't afford to waste time." Captain Loren stood beside her, his eyes focused on the tactical display. The young Exol officer had quickly proven his worth in the short time he had worked with Ryder. While many of his people doubted humanity's methods, Loren had come to see the power in their unpredictability. He had learned quickly that the Deathworlders didn't think like the Exol or any other species. They fought without hesitation and with a brutal efficiency that shocked their enemies. "We'll strike at their weak points," Loren suggested, pointing to the map. "The Dren are strong in numbers, but they lack coordination. If we hit their supply lines and cut off their reinforcements, they'll fall apart." Ryder nodded, considering his words. "Exactly. We'll use their own recklessness against them. We'll break them into smaller groups, make them chase shadows. It's a risky play, but it's our only chance." As the combined Deathworlder Exol fleet moved into position, Ryder felt a rush of anticipation. She knew this battle would be hard, possibly the hardest of her career. But she also knew that if they succeeded here, it would send a powerful message to the galaxy. Humanity was not only capable of surviving, they could dominate. The battle began with a sudden, brutal strike. The human ships led the charge, their raw power overwhelming the Dren defenses in the first wave. Unlike the Exol, who relied on careful precision, the humans attacked with sheer force. Their ships were not as sleek or as advanced, but their weapons hit like a hammer. The Dren were thrown into disarray as they tried to regroup. Ryder's fleet was fast and aggressive, attacking from unexpected angles. The Dren, who were used to facing traditional warfare, were caught off guard. The Exol ships, moving in synchronized formations, picked off Dren ships one by one. The combination of human unpredictability and Exol discipline was proving to be an unstoppable force. But the battle was far from over. The Dren regrouped quickly, their leadership taking charge of the chaos. They retaliated with fierce counterattacks, and soon the skies above Anarath were filled with the sounds of explosions and the flashes of energy weapons. The planet's surface trembled under the assault. Ryder's fleet was in the thick of it, fighting tooth and nail for every inch of space. As her ship dodged incoming fire, she saw the Exolar forces working in harmony with the humans, their ships moving as one to destroy the Dren positions. "Captain Lorraine, are we ready for the second phase?" Ryder asked, her voice tense. Loren nodded, his eyes sharp. "We're in position. It's time to finish this." With a signal from Ryder, the human fleet executed a daring move, flanking the Dren's main base from an unexpected direction, cutting off their escape routes. The Dren, unable to regroup in time, began to panic. Ryder could feel it in the air. The tide was turning. By the time the sun set over Anarath, the Dren were on the retreat. Their forces, broken and disorganized, had no choice but to abandon their positions. The planet, though scared, was reclaimed. Admiral Ryder stood silently on the bridge of the raging Phoenix, watching the smoke rise from the planet's surface. Victory had been hard-earned, but it was theirs. The Deathworlders had proven themselves once again, not just as survivors, but as the galaxy's new power. Ryder knew this victory was just the beginning. The galaxy would be watching, and humanity had just made its mark. As the fleet prepared to leave Anarath's atmosphere, Ryder glanced at Captain Lorraine. "We did it," she said quietly. Loren nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "This is just the start. Together, we can win this war." The victory at Anarath was a turning point in the war, but it didn't last long. News of the Deathworlder fleet's success spread across the galaxy, and many factions began to rally behind the humans and the Exolar. It seemed as if humanity's arrival was the spark the galaxy needed to unite against their common enemies. But amid this fragile hope, something darker was stirring in the shadows of space. The Rithar Collective, an ancient race of war machines, long thought to be a myth, began to make their move. The Rithar had been quiet for centuries, lurking in the outskirts of known space, watching, waiting. They were beings of pure metal and artificial intelligence, with no emotions, no weaknesses. Their only goal was to conquer, to wipe out anything that stood in their path. At first, their appearance was subtle. An attack here, a raid there. But as the days passed, their presence became undeniable. Entire planets were vanishing, consumed by the Rithar, in a manner too efficient and terrifying to comprehend. It was as if the galaxy itself was being systematically erased. Admiral Elena Ryder was the first to recognize the threat. She had seen many enemies in her career, but the Rithar were different. They didn't fight for resources, for territory, or for power. They fought simply to destroy, to strip the galaxy of any life that could challenge their cold, calculating existence. Their machines were nearly invincible, their strategies flawless. There was no bargaining with them, no way to reason with them. They were pure destruction. Ryder stood in the command center of her flagship, the raging Phoenix, looking over the reports. The Rithar had launched an attack on the planet Darshi, a once thriving Exolar world. The entire planet had been consumed in a matter of hours. Its people, its cities, its defenses, all gone. No one had been able to stop them. "Admiral, the Rithar have taken Darshi," Captain Loren reported, his voice grave. "We've just received word from the rest of the fleet. They're moving faster than we can react." Ryder clenched her fists. The galaxy's already unstable alliances were now in even more danger. The Rithar didn't care about alliances, or about the delicate balance the Deathworlders and Xol had started to build. They were going to destroy everything, one world at a time. "We need to act," Ryder said firmly. "We can't let them keep destroying planets like this. The Exolar and the Deathworlder fleets have already proven we can win battles together. Now it's time to show the galaxy that we can stand against something like the Rithar." The Exolar, once skeptical of humanity's methods, now understood the need for them. They, too, had seen the devastation the Rithar were capable of. Even their most advanced technology seemed powerless against the machines. But there was one thing the Exar knew well. When there was no hope left, they fought with everything they had, no matter the odds. And with humanity at their side, they believed they might stand a chance. A council was quickly formed, with Admiral Ryder and the Exar leaders at the head. The strategy was clear. They would fight the Rithar on multiple fronts. The Deathworlder fleet, with its unrelenting style of warfare, would keep the Rithar distracted and divided. Meanwhile, the Exar fleet would work to gather intelligence and find a way to exploit the Rithar's weaknesses. But the truth was, they didn't know if their combined strength would be enough. The Rithar were not like the Dren or any other enemy they had fought before. They didn't rely on the same tactics or strategies, and their machines seemed to have no limit to their power. Ryder knew this battle would be unlike any other. If they failed, the galaxy would fall. The Rithar have underestimated us, Ryder said, her voice sharp. They think we're just another enemy to wipe out. But they're wrong. We're not like the others. We fight for something more. And together, we will make them regret ever coming here. The fleet moved into position, and the war against the Rithar began. As the first battle commenced, the Deathworlders and the Exar stood side by side. Two very different forces, united by a common enemy. But deep down, Ryder knew that this war would test everything they had. There was no guarantee they would survive. But one thing was certain. They would fight with everything they had. The fleet moved into position, and the tension in space was palpable. Admiral Ryder stood at the center of her flagship, the Raging Phoenix, her eyes fixed on the holomap of the battlefield. The Rithar had struck another planet, a small mining colony on the edge of solar space, and they were making their way toward a much larger target, the Exar homeworld of Xenthis. This could be the beginning of their end if they weren't careful. Admiral Ryder had seen her fair share of battles, but nothing compared to the cold, relentless fury of the Rithar. Their ships were nearly indestructible, and their attacks were fast and precise. No other species in the galaxy had faced anything like them. The Deathworlder fleet, strong as it was, could only do so much. It was clear that even with their combined forces, victory would not come easily. "Status report, Captain Lorraine," Ryder said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. Lorraine stood beside her, studying the readouts on his console. The Rithar are moving faster than anticipated. They've already wiped out 2 more colonies in the last few hours. We can't afford to wait any longer. Ryder nodded. We'll engage them at the outer rim of Xenthis system. We'll use the Exar's superior maneuverability to outflank them. We need to hit them before they can get close enough to strike at the planet. Lauren's face hardened. It's risky. If we fail, we lose everything. Ryder turned to face him. We don't have the luxury of fear. This is our one shot. The battle for Xenthis began with a shocking speed. The Rithar arrived with a fleet of towering mechanical ships, cold, calculating, and seemingly unstoppable. They moved like a swarm of locusts, efficient and fast, consuming everything in their path. The human and Exar fleets immediately engaged, their ships maneuvering with deadly purpose. Admiral Ryder led the charge, her fleet tearing through the Rithar's outer defenses with devastating force. Human ships, built for aggressive, unrelenting combat, attacked without hesitation. The Exar ships, sleek and precise, worked in perfect harmony with the Deathworlders, picking off Rithar vessels from unexpected angles. But despite their efforts, the Rithar kept coming, their ships absorbing the blows with unnatural resilience. Ryder could feel the pressure mounting. It was clear that brute force alone wouldn't be enough. The Rithar were too powerful, too efficient. They adapted to every move the humans and Exar made. We need to change the game, Ryder muttered under her breath. Then she turned to Lorraine. Give me something unexpected. Distract them long enough for us to regroup. Lauren's mind worked quickly. I have an idea. If we can lure them into the asteroid field just beyond the fourth moon of Xanthus, we can use the terrain to limit their movement. Their ships rely on perfect synchronization, but the asteroids will force them to make unpredictable maneuvers. Ryder's eyes narrowed as she processed the plan. It's dangerous, but it could work. Let's do it. The Deathworlder fleet pulled back, retreating toward the asteroid field. The Rithar, calculating as always, followed. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, but now they were about to find out how deadly unpredictability could be. As the fleets entered the asteroid field, chaos erupted. The Rithar, used to controlling the battlefield with cold precision, were now forced to navigate through the dense field of rocks and debris. The Deathworlders and the Exalr used the terrain to their advantage, attacking from all directions, forcing the Rithar into a corner. In the chaos, Ryder gave the order to launch a full assault. Ships from both the Exalr and the humans pounced on the Rithar, striking at their weak points. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The Rithar, unable to adapt fast enough to the changing conditions, started to falter. For the first time, it seemed the Deathworlders and the Exalr were gaining ground. Ryder watched as the enemy ships, once unstoppable, began to crumble. But the victory wasn't secure yet. The Rithar were relentless, and they would not go down without a fight. Keep pushing forward. Ryder barked, her voice unwavering. We can't let up now. The battle raged on, and while the Deathworlders and Exalr were making progress, it was clear that this was only the beginning. The Rithar were a threat unlike any other, and this battle, though hard won, was just one small step in a war that would define the fate of the galaxy. The battle above Xanthus had been a costly one, but it was a victory, and for the first time, the Deathworlders and Exalr believed they might have a real chance of stopping the Rithar. The enemy fleet had retreated into the deep reaches of space, their machines damaged, their numbers thinning. The combined forces of the humans and Exalr had proven that they could fight back. But even as the fires of battle cooled, a new concern rose. The victory at Xanthus wasn't just a turning point for the war. It was also a signal. The Rithar would be back, and they would be more prepared. They would not simply give up after one loss. Ryder knew this. She stood on the bridge of the raging Phoenix, staring at the star-filled expanse outside. The galaxy was vast, and there were still many places the Rithar could strike. Even with their retreat, the battle was far from over. Admiral, there's something you need to see, Captain Lauren said as he walked onto the bridge. Ryder turned to him. What is it? Lauren handed her a data pad, his face grave. It's a message from the Rithar fleet. They've sent out a signal. It's a warning. Ryder took the pad and studied it carefully. The message was short, its meaning unmistakable. You have delayed us, but you will not stop us. We are coming for you all. There was no doubt now. The Rithar were not just a threat to the Exalr or the humans. They were a threat to everyone. Their goal was total annihilation, and they were determined to carry it out. We can't just sit back and wait for them to attack again, Ryder said, her voice firm. We need to take the fight to them before they do the same to us. If we don't, they'll wipe out everything. Lauren nodded in agreement. The Rithar are relentless, but they have one weakness. Though their ships are nearly invincible, their command structure is still centralized. If we strike at their core, we may be able to cripple them. Ryder turned to face her crew. We need to find where they're regrouping. We can't let them gather strength. The Rithar's forces are vast, but they're not invincible. We've proven that. The crew immediately got to work. The plan was risky, but Ryder was certain it was their best shot. The human fleet would move in first, drawing the Rithar's attention while the Exalr forces set up a trap in their path. It was a plan of deception and surprise, relying on quick thinking and flawless execution. If they were successful, they could force the Rithar into a vulnerable position, one that might allow them to take down their central command. As the fleet set off, Ryder couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. They had no idea where the Rithar were hiding or what kind of trap the machines might be planning. But there was no time to hesitate. The galaxy's survival depended on this next move. The first few days of the operation were filled with tension. The fleet moved silently through the dark reaches of space, careful not to give away their position. Ryder's heart raced as they neared the last known location of the Rithar's retreat. Every moment felt like a countdown, and the longer they waited, the more vulnerable they became. Then, on the fourth day, their sensors picked up something. A faint signal. It was a distress call from one of the Exal's outer colonies. Ryder's heart sank as she listened to the message. The Rithar had found them first, and they had already begun their assault. "We're too late," Lauren muttered. "They've moved faster than we expected." Ryder clenched her fists. "Not yet. We've still got a chance." With no time to waste, she ordered the fleet into battle. The war was far from over, and the Rithar had proven that they could strike anywhere, anytime. But Ryder refused to let fear stop them now. If they were going to win this war, they would need to outthink, outfight, and outblast their enemies. The fleet raced toward the colony, knowing that the future of the galaxy depended on this fight. It was a spark of hope in the dark, and they had to seize it before it was too late. The raging Phoenix surged through the void, its engines humming as it closed in on the Exal colony under attack. Ryder stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the view ahead. The dark expanse of space was filled with the silent chaos of battle. Ships from the Deathworlder fleet and the Exal forces had already arrived, engaging the Rithar machines in a brutal dance of destruction. Yet, despite their best efforts, the machines showed no sign of slowing. "Admiral, we've received a message from the colony's command center," Lauren said, his voice tense. "They're holding on, but just barely. The Rithar are pressing hard." Ryder nodded, her expression hard. "We're not going to let them fall. Not today." The plan was already in motion. The human fleet would act as a diversion, drawing the Rithar's attention away from the colony, while the Exolar forces made a direct strike at the heart of the Rithar's command. It was a daring move, but there was no time for caution. If they waited too long, the colony would be lost, and the Rithar would gain a foothold that could prove devastating. As they approached the battlefield, Ryder could see the massive shadow of the Rithar fleet looming in the distance. Their ships were enormous, mechanical behemoths that moved with chilling precision. There was no sign of hesitation in their movements. The Rithar had been built for one purpose: to destroy everything in their path, and they carried out that mission without emotion or mercy. "Prepare for engagement," Ryder ordered. "Captain Lauren, take the lead. The Exaler will follow. We need to give them an opening." Lauren nodded, his expression set. "Understood, Admiral." The human ships shot forward like arrows, breaking the silence of space with their sudden and forceful advance. They were swift and aggressive, launching a barrage of fire at the Rithar fleet. The impact of the first few strikes sent shockwaves through the battlefield, but the Rithar ships barely flinched. They were built to withstand damage, and their advanced armor absorbed most of the blows. Still, the Deathworlders were relentless, pushing forward, firing in rapid bursts, determined to draw attention. The Exar, working in tight formations, took advantage of the chaos. They flanked the Rithar fleet from the sides, attacking their weaker points with expert precision. It was a strategy that had worked before, but this time, the Rithar seemed to anticipate every move. Their ships were adapting, their movements becoming more unpredictable. It was clear that the machines were learning. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the left flank," Lauren reported. "The Rithar have adapted faster than we thought. They're pushing back harder." Ryder clenched her fists. The enemy was too smart, too fast, but she couldn't afford to back down. "Give the signal to the Exar fleet. It's time for Phase 2. With a series of coded commands, the Exar forces shifted their strategy, moving in a different direction to confuse the Rithar and create openings. The Deathworlder fleet continued its aggressive assault, their ships dodging, weaving, and firing with a brutal unpredictability that kept the Rithar on the defensive. For a moment, it seemed as though the battle was going in their favor. But then, just as the Exolar forces neared the Rithar's command ship, a new wave of Rithar ships emerged from the shadows of a nearby moon, flanking the Exolar ships. The Exolar had been outmaneuvered, and the Rithar had set a trap of their own. "Admiral," Loren shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to retreat. The Exolar are surrounded." Ryder's heart raced as she processed the new development. They were caught in the heart of a trap, and the situation was deteriorating quickly. The colony was at risk, and the fleet was being overwhelmed. There was only one option left. "Not yet," Ryder said, her voice low but steady. "We fight. We push through." She gave the order for the Deathworlder fleet to break formation and scatter. The Rithar would expect them to stay in tight groups, but the unpredictability of their attack style would now be their greatest weapon. The human ships darted in every direction, attacking from multiple angles, forcing the Rithar to split their forces. The Exolar fleet, though outnumbered, followed suit, launching a final push toward the command ship. The battle was far from over, but Ryder could see the beginning of a crack in the Rithar's cold, calculated wall. They had been forced to react, to adapt, and in doing so, they had lost a part of their advantage. The Deathworlders and Saur might not win today, but they were far from defeated. The storm was far from over, but a spark of hope had been ignited, and it was burning bright. The battle above the colony had raged for hours, the skies lit with the glow of energy weapons and the debris of broken ships. Ryder watched the chaos unfold through the bridge's view screen, her face grim. The Rithar had proven themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Yet despite their cold, unstoppable nature, the Deathworlders and the Saur had not given up. They fought with everything they had, pushing forward with unwavering determination. The Rithar had adapted to every tactic the humans and Saur had thrown at them, but there was something the machines couldn't understand: the spirit of those who fought for something greater than themselves. Ryder gripped the armrest of her chair, feeling the vibrations of her ship as it dodged another wave of enemy fire. "How's the status on the Exolar fleet?" she asked, her voice calm despite the intensity of the battle. Loren glanced at the readouts on his console. "They're holding on, but just barely. The Rithar has shifted their focus to them. If we don't do something soon, we'll lose our opening." The Deathworlders had bought the Exolar a chance, but now it was time to finish what they'd started. Ryder knew they had only one shot left to take down the Rithar command ship and deal a crippling blow to their forces. "Prepare for a full assault on the Rithar command ship," Ryder ordered. "We go in fast, and we hit them hard." Loren turned toward her. "It's a suicide mission, Admiral. If we go in like that, we won't make it." Ryder met his gaze, her eyes cold with resolve. "We don't have time for second guesses. If we don't act now, we lose everything. Our people, the galaxy, everything we fought for. We can't let the Rithar win." The Deathworlder fleet, battered and scarred, regrouped and readied for their final push. Their ships darted forward, moving at full speed toward the Rithar command ship. The Exolar fleet, despite their losses, followed close behind, providing covering fire and drawing the enemy's attention away from the main assault. The Rithar, though powerful, had no way of predicting the sheer force of the attack. The Deathworlders struck first, launching missiles and energy blasts with precision. The Rithar ships retaliated with a ferocity that nearly tore through the Deathworlder ships, but the humans kept pushing forward, relentlessly charging toward the heart of the enemy fleet. As the raging phoenix neared the Rithar command ship, Ryder's pulse quickened. The plan was working. They had drawn the Rithar into a trap, isolating their flagship from the rest of the fleet. It was now or never. The Rithar were focused on the Exolar and other Deathworlder ships, leaving their command ship vulnerable. "Fire everything we've got," Ryder shouted. The raging phoenix unleashed a barrage of weapons, energy blasts lighting up the void as they smashed into the Rithar command ship. The enemy vessel shook violently, its shields weakening under the assault. But just as the Deathworlders thought they had the upper hand, the Rithar flagship retaliated, firing powerful blasts that tore through the front of the human fleet. It was chaos, but the Deathworlders did not stop. They fought harder, pushing with everything they had left. "Admiral, the command ship shields are down to 30%. Lauren yelled. Ryder's eyes burned with fierce determination. "We can finish this. Keep pressing them." In the final moments of the battle, Ryder gave one last order. "All ships, focus your fire on the Rithar central core." Now, the fleet's remaining ships, despite their damage, concentrated their fire on the Rithar command ship's vulnerable heart. In a final, glorious explosion, the Rithar flagship shattered, its core collapsing in a massive burst of energy. The shockwave reverberated through space, and the remaining Rithar ships were thrown into disarray. The battle was over. The Deathworlders and Axolor stood victorious. The surviving members of the Axolor fleet began to regroup, while the human ships circled the wreckage of the Rithar command ship. Ryder let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "We did it," Lauren said softly, disbelief in his voice. Ryder nodded, still processing the scale of the victory. "We've only just begun," she said quietly. "The Rithar were just the first wave, but we've shown the galaxy that we can stand together. And together, we will win." The galaxy was still at war, and there would be more battles to fight. But now, humanity and the Axolor knew that they were no longer alone. The spark of hope had turned into a blazing fire, and with that fire, they would burn away the darkness that threatened their worlds. The Deathworlders had proven that, against all odds, they were the galaxy's final hope.